Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. This is the tutorial on how I made this Liberty tag mini album. There is a walkthrough in another video. I will list it in the description box. If you haven't seen it, you probably should go back and watch the walkthrough and then come back and watch the tutorial to see how to make it. I am going to jump right in and show you how to make it. It's quick and easy, and you don't need that many supplies. So let's get started. Okay, so what you're going to need is the 8x8 All-American paper. So grab that paper pad. You'll need 2 of the square graphic 45 tags. I use the ones in craft. And you'll need the square tag die. So let's grab the 2 tags and move everything else out of the way. And I am going to start with this paper, and I'm going to cut it at 4 1/4. So I just cut the bottom 4 1/4, and then I am going to cut it 5 inches. Put that aside for now, but with the remaining piece we're going to cut that 3 1/2. So you'll just be taking about 1/4 of an inch off of it. So like that. And move these out of the way too, and grab my scoreboard. So this piece we're going to score at 2 and at 3 1/4. This piece we're going to score at 1 3/4, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, 4 1/4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 5 3/4, 6 1/4, 6 3/4, and 7. Alright, let's take this, and I'm going to burnish on the score lines. And we're going to do the same for this. Now the hinge is going to be with the stars. So I'm going to fold in between. There's 2 1/2-inch pieces here. I'm going to fold in the center of those and burnish. And all of the 1/2-inch pieces I'll fold and score. Now it's cracking a little bit. It's really dry where I am, but that's okay. And then I'm going to pull on the paper and match up those 1/2-inch pieces. Then I will grab some glue and put glue in between in those mountains of all those 4 sets of 1/2-inch pieces, and hold that together, and that's going to become your hinge. So let's glue all those together. And match them all up. Squeeze those together, and then I'll burnish. Okay, there's our hinge, and here is what we're going to use to attach the two tags together. But before I do that, I want to use a corner rounder, and I'll fold this and round the corners. This is an old corner rounder I have. I need to get a new one. I know Tammy has some new ones in the shop. Well, they may not be that new, but I have to put that on my list. All right, so we have it like that. And what we're going to do is just simply glue these two here. So make sure this is still going to open. So don't do it right over the crease, but do it right a little bit to the right of the crease. So I'll just add some glue here. And put that down, make sure it still folds. And do the same for the other side. Let me burnish this. Okay, and now what we're going to do is glue this right on the tags, and you'll see there's those little score lines. That's where you're going to meet the side of the tags with those score lines. So I'm going to first glue down this part of the hinge. I'm going to hold it on the side, make sure it is centered. And I'll take my bone folder and burnish that down. And once that's done, then I'll lift this up and add more glue here. And burnish all that down. Alright, I let that dry for a minute or two, and then you can fold. I like to wait till it's dry before I fold it, just because it will, otherwise it won't bubble up. Now here's where I'm going to ink around the edges. I've got some blue. I don't have the new blue, which would be fabulous, but I have chipped sapphire, so I'm just going to take that and ink around the edges. I'm using Distress Oxide, but if you just have the regular Distress ink, that would work just as well. I'm just going to use blue as a unifying color, so I wanted the edges of this to be blue. Okay, now I am taking my scoring board And I've cut 4 of the papers. Actually, I cut 3. I cut the top and bottom of this one at 4 inches. So you have 4 by 8, which is obviously the length of our 8-inch paper. But if you have the 12, you can cut that down. And I'm going to score in the center at 4 on all 4 of those. I've already scored the other 3, and I just needed to do that one. So we're all done with that. And we will fold and burnish. Of course, this is when you need to take the opportunity to decide if you're going to use the inside or the outside of the paper. So for this one, I'll use that as opposed to that, because you would lose some of it. Yeah, either way, whatever you prefer. And then I'm going to probably do Liberty first. Liberty. And then that one. Then that one. And that'll be at the end. So I'm going to turn it over and start with the one at the back. So I'm going to add some glue onto my 1/2 inch hinge and put the paper on there. So I'm going to push it all the way and then back off just a little bit and make sure it's centered top and bottom on here. So I'll push that down. It's parallel on the bottom there. There, zoomed in a little. And then I will open this up, add some glue to the bottom. I've learned this from some of Tamara from Country Craft Creations' other tutorials. It's a quick, easy way of making a page, and it's fun. I mean, it really is very easy. By putting the glue on the bottom, now you've made it a pocket page once the glue's dry. Alright, and then we'll continue and do that for the other 3. I'm just adding glue to the top half of the hinge. Oops, just that one. Put it on. So I'm all the way to the hinge, but I'm going to back off a little bit and make sure it's lined up with the page below it. And then add glue to the bottom and that, and burnish. And there's another page. I guess you could go down more than half because we're going almost to the very edge of our hinge. Isn't that great? I love the graphics on that too. Okay, so now we've got our pages. If you'd like, you can ink around the edges. At this point, I don't think I'm going to, but you can if you want to. And you've got the beginning of a mini album. So let's add to the cover. So to do the cover, we're going to take our die and we're going to cut whatever we want for the front outside cover, the front inside cover, the back inside cover, and the back outside cover. So I will go ahead and do that off camera and then show you what I've made. Okay, let's do the inside front cover. So I have used the die to cut out the Statue of Liberty. I made sure that most of the Statue of Liberty was within the die. So we have that. And then I took another piece of the paper and cut two 4x4 pieces. To do that, I cut probably about an inch off the bottom. I wanted it to be just about the same height as this one, as far as from where it started at the bottom to where it ended. And then I cut 4 inches up, and again 4x4. So what I'm going to do is take my scoreboard and score Lady Liberty at 1/2 inch. And this other one I'm going to score at 3.5. And I am going to miter the corners on both those pieces and fold in burnish. And then I'm going to be putting Lady Liberty to one side, and then this one will go on the other side. But I want to line it up first and see where I need to round the corners. And I say I just really need to round the corners over the folds. So we've got it, whoops. I've got it folded where my score line is, and I'm going to round through those 2 layers. Do the same on this side. And then I will just line them up. I'm turning this over, and I'm going to add the glue to the tabs here and just fold that over. Okay, so I've glued those on to there, and then I am going to add glue to here, especially going around the outside, and then filling in, and of course going around that circle so it stays. And make sure first that circle area is lined up, and then the rest. And I will burnish that real well. Thank you. You know what I meant to do first? I'm going to pull this up real quick. I'm going to put some string down, some ribbon, so it would tie. No harm, no foul. Got it up in time. I'll add glue to here. And I'm adding some glue to here where the ribbon's going to stay. Seam binding, I call it ribbon. And And then that will tie like that. And there we have that, and that'll open, and then this will open like that, and you can put photos here. I don't know that I would cover that, but you could if you wanted to. Okay, so that is for page 1 and the front inside cover. I'm going to leave where it says Liberty alone, because I like that, and you can put a photograph right on top of that. Okay, so there we go with that. Okay, so for page, the back of page 1 and the front of page 2, I have this piece of cut 4 inches by the 8 inches, so I just cut 4 inches on the bottom. I'm just going to score it 4 inches. Simple as that. I'm going to fold and burnish. I'm going to ink lightly around the edges here. And you know, before I do anything, I'm going to just use my corner rounder for just the front there. What I want to do is cover up this red. Well, I probably should have had red over here, but and I am just going to adhere that. So you could just glue 3 sides of it and make this another pocket. Do I want to do that? You know what? I don't think I do. If you wanted to, you just glue the 2 sides and the bottom, and maybe even make cut half a circle on the top, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just put that right on top of this page. And there we go with that. And so that'll open up like that, but you still can use that to put photos on. So there is that one. Now let's do this page. Okay, so I've taken this page with Liberty and the red Statue of Liberty, and I cut it 4 inches from top to bottom. Now I'm going to cut this just to where the torch is in her hand. And then I'm going to grab my scoreboard and score at 4 inches. And I'll gently fold that up. And then I'm going to add something to the top here. So I'm going to just glue this onto the front. Just like that. And you know why? Because the eagle here is upside down. But if you cover it, you don't know what it is. It's just red around it. Although that does say American Eagle. Okay, before we do anything with that, we're going to take a scoreboard, and we have on the other half of that page, I cut a piece 4.5 inches, and I'm going to score 1/2 inch at the top of the page. I'll miter where I scored. And what I will do is line that up on top of here. I'm turning this over, and I'll add glue there. And then I will glue this whole thing onto the front of that page. And you know what, I should have done this first, but I'm gonna use corner rounder on the edges. And then I'm going to make a simple pocket here by just put some glue on two sides. Burnish that real well. And then as soon as that's dry, I'll put in a couple of these tags that I cut out. I'll stay away from the edges right now. And there's that. If you wanted to, you could add a small magnet underneath here. I'm just going to burnish that so it stays. I'm trying not to use any magnets in this book. So there we go. So again, photos here. You could put a photo there and here. And if you have small 1.5 by 2 photos, you could put them on the backs of there, or just stick them in the pocket. All right, let's move on to the next page. Okay, in the Graphic 45 square tag and clock metal dies, there are these two dies that I cut out. This was the back of a cut apart page. I cut a 4x4 square and then cut using the Roman numerals. I cut a circle out of there, and with another piece that was 4x4, I cut this decorative piece. Now I'm going to take that, put it back. Oops. All right, first, what we're going to do, what we have to do is get this piece on. I'm going to glue it on flat and center it. But I want to make sure. So we're going to just center it. And before I push it down, I want to make sure, yeah, that's good. Okay, so that circle is centered. And then I'm going to just glue down on the two sides and the bottom this. Before I do that, I'm going to take a small circle punch. And just cut out sort of a thumbnail tab so people know that that is an insert. So I'll glue down the edge. You could pop this up if you wanted to. I am trying to keep it very flat, so I'm not going to. And then glue that right on top of your page. So you've got this little tab that opens, and then we will take this piece and glue that right onto the square. So sometimes when I've got a small I'm just taking a scrap of paper that's a different color, something that's got a lot of detail to it. So what I do is I take some glue and put it down and make sure I have top and bottom and put it on the page that way. Okay, I can throw that out. But so now we've got that, and if you wanted to, when you finish decorating, you can take something and put it inside here. In fact, I'll probably do that so people know that is a place to insert photos. So you'll see that when I've done the complete walkthrough. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so for the last page and the back inside cover, I have used the tag to cut the baseball guys. I cut it down to the bottom of the page. I also used the tag or the die to cut another piece just an inch. I just cut it an inch worth. So what we're going to do is that's going to be a pocket. But before we deal with the pocket, I also cut another piece with the red stars, and I am going to glue that right onto here. So I'll make sure I know where it's going to go, and then I will add glue to this tab. Oh yeah, I probably should have mired and rounded the corner. I can still round the corner. Because I want this to match with that, and this to sort of be like a surprise. You open it up and, oh, there's the baseball guys. I'm going to glue this onto here, but because this, if you want to, before you glue this, you can add a magnet in here and put a magnet back here. If you want to, you can do that. Do I want to round the corners? No, I don't think so. Just because I like this baseball guy there, so I wanted to do that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do anything different. Oops. Oh, do I want that though? No, I want the baseball guy. Although you could do this one. If you wanted to have that there, that would work as well. And you also could just glue on the two sides in the bottom and again make this a pocket. You need it to round that corner, and then we'll add glue to the back. Just have to get that around the eyelet, and take my bone folder and burnish. So now we have that page, and then we'll take this and just, it's a simple pocket. I'm just going to add glue to the two sides and the bottom, just a thin bead of glue, and put it right on top of that. And once I put it down, then I just slightly push at the two top corners here so it's open. And then you can take these baseball player cards and put them in there. But I love that baseball. All right, now let's work on the front and back outside cover. All right, pretty simple. I've already put a little piece of score tape in the center of the cover. I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish that, and then take a piece of seam binding, probably about 12 inches, and just tack it on there. Also, when you glue down the paper on top, that'll also help adhere it. So here is what I've chosen for the cover. I'm going to go ahead and add glue to the perimeter of this paper. Go around the circle. I just like to make sure that the outside of the cover especially, but really all pages, has good adhesion, and then add some to the center. Try to get that pin in again. Make sure it's lined up correctly at that eyelet. And swing it wherever it needs to go, and then burnish it. Simple. I mean, these dies make things easy. All right, and then the back, I'll take off the cover, or what's on my double-sided adhesive. Figure out what side I'm going to put down, and then go ahead and add my glue. I'm not going to do very much to the back because it's the back. So I'll just go ahead and add some glue to the perimeter and then the inside of this die cut tag. Whoa. Yeah, don't forget. So easy to forget, isn't it? All right, so we'll get that on. Add the glue. I do love this eagle with Uncle Sam riding on it. I think it's a really cool image. Of course, it's not computer generated because it was done, what, back in the 30s maybe? I just love all the graphics they did. So now I'm just going to tie this. I am eventually going to crinkle it so it's not so perfect looking. So it looks a little more vintagey. But I'm going to work on the front cover first. So I've already cut some pieces out. This piece is about 3 by 3. This is about 3.5 by 3.5. Then I cut out a couple of images. I wanted a circle, so that was from the center of that clock piece. I have a piece that says Liberty, and then I cut out some red cardstock to back it. There's that red medallion that says America something on it. And then these 4 pieces were from the die cut, and I'm not sure what it is, what you use it for. I'm trying to find my dies. So here's the die, and see, it's this piece right there. So I cut 4 of those, and originally I thought, well, you can use those as like photo corners and tack a photo in. But then I realized, you could also use those just for decoration on corners. So I cut 4 with some of that blue paper, and there's a hole in each of them. And I had some brads that were silver stars, and originally I thought, all right, I'll use those silver stars. And then thinking about it, they're probably too big. So anyhow, I'm gonna just keep going on, try to figure something out. I'll grab my walnut stain and ink the edges of this paper. It's the paper with the red stars, because I've got the blue bells in the background with stars, and this is blue. They're open stars, just like the outline of the stars. So we've got the red and the blue. See, there's the blue and the stars. And then, of course, to accentuate the red, I'm going to put it on some of this red cardstock. It just was a scrap from my stash. I have a shoebox of scraps. I have it sort of in rainbow order. And, yeah, I want to put something on the front here, the red, and then put that on, but I'm going to ink it first. So anyhow, I keep the scraps. I go through them every once in a while. If I have scraps of paper pads that I want to give to any kids that I meet along the way, then I'll go and take some cardstock that matches. All right, let's do this. Go around the perimeter, then the center, and do your best to center it on the cardstock. And then that will go right on the front. I've realized that on the front I do so many layers. I just find I like to have a lot of interest. All right, I'll go ahead and burnish this down. And then trying to decide exactly what I'm going to do next. So I'll ink around the edges of Liberty. I cut this, there's lines to outline this, and I cut as much on the lines as I can. But when you ink around the edges, it looks like you've cut to perfection. Inking hides so many sins. I'll ink around this little piece of red cardstock. It's probably cut about 1/8 of an inch bigger than the Liberty. Sorry, I'm way down on the bottom. I've been moving my camera around and I forget where it shows. So you see the outline of Liberty. I put it there, and then I'm thinking, do I want it below? Do I want it above? I sort of like it up a little higher. And then I have the Liberty Bell. I'll ink it a little bit, but it doesn't need too much to stand out. Although at this point I'm thinking I need something with a little pop. But I'll keep working and eventually something will come to me. All right, now I'm going to take those 4 corners. The ones that are made of the darker blue do real well. And I don't know if I do it on camera, but I grab my my blue ink and ink all 4 of those just a little bit, just to have them a little more consistent in color. All right, now I'm trying to figure out what else I'm going to do. I went in my stash and I found I had some blue stars. I'm going to try to give you a close-up, but I don't know how close I can get and still have it be in focus, but let's give it a try. Yeah, not in focus, but you see they're blue stars. So they're brads. They're very, very small. Focus. Yeah, it's not going to focus. Give it up, Deb. Okay. But anyhow, I had those brads. I just bent the legs of the brads. I don't know. I'm sure there's a technical word. But I just bent it underneath. If I were smart, I would have put it on this red cardstock and made a hole in that before I adhered the cardstock. But of course I wasn't thinking ahead. I didn't know I was going to use this blue square brads at that point. Anyhow, I'm going to add them to the corners. And I like how it sort of pulls everything together. You've got the blue stars on that background paper. You've got the red stars on the paper above the red, and now we've got blue stars on the corner. So I'm pushing down with my bone folder just to squish them a little bit. Alrighty. Added a little more glue, burnishing it. Okay, we should be good. All right, now I'm going to figure out what to do. So the Liberty, as I said, I backed in some blue cardstock. And I am so sorry that it's below the camera line. But what I did is, because there's a couple of layers, the red and then the red star paper, I decided to add a couple of layers of just scrap paper on the very top of where it says Liberty. That way it will sit flat as opposed to sort of go down at a incline. So I add Liberty to the top, and then I decided I didn't want to use the red inked square. I took the one that has American Eagle, and I just had the America at the top, and I'm going to cover it with the Liberty Bell. But before I do that, I decide, I'm going to pop it up. So I grab my foam strips that I got at Country Craft Creations, and I add that to the Liberty Bell. And so I'm not using all those teeny strips. I also grab my roll of foam and just put that on the back. There's that foam tape. Good stuff. So I put it down, but it's not going to stay forever. You'll find out why in just a second. So there's the Liberty Bell. And actually, that's not a bad composition. It's very centered. I decided I need something so it's not totally centered. And I have 2 white buttons and a red one of stars. And then I look at my little stash to see if I have any more blue, but I don't want to add more star brads. In that same stash that has my buttons and stars, or at least it was in the same drawer, I had these red stars. I thought, okay, those look cool. I like that. It sort of pops. That's good. And then there's Christmas tinsel. There's some red Christmas tinsel. What can I do with that? I usually don't like to mix bright, shiny, glittery things with vintage. I just feel like they're different eras. You know, one's vintagey and toned down, and then you have the bright glitter. But in this case, I wanted a POW, so that's what I did. I unraveled the glitter tinsel, it is, rope. There are 4 strands of tinsel in each little rope, and I had it sticking to that double-sided tape. So now I have to add some glue. I peeled it up carefully. See, that's how thin it is when all said and done. And then I put that, I decided just to put it right on top of the circle. Yep. I don't care if the America shows. I was so careful about centering it too. But it just, I don't know, just seems to outline that red, really accentuates that focal point there. And I like how that turned out. All right, now I'm covering, I just have the top because it's plastic, and I'm grabbing a scrap of paper and putting it underneath my seam binding and spritzing it with water, and then I crumple it up. Like I said, it just was too new looking, and again, to me, vintage is old, wrinkly. Like me, vintage. Just kidding. I'm not wrinkly. That's a good thing. All right, now I'm going to go work on some of the pages, and you're going to see what I do. So on this page, I have some ribbon, and I put a piece of red cardstock below it. On this one, so I cut out another Voice of Liberty, and I line it up and make little tick marks where the fold in the paper is, and I line that up with my 6-inch score and burnish on the score. Then I go over to about 3 7/8. I don't know. I lined it up based on having about 3/4 of an inch on each side. And I'm lining it up on my paper. Come on, Deb. Move it up. Move it, move it, move it. Oh. Sometimes I'm oblivious to the camera. Well, let me fast forward and find where it is you can see this. Okay, here we go. So I lined up where that score line is in the center, and then I will add some glue on the ends and just glue the 2 ends and have the center not glued. Okay, making sure it's on, and then you fold it and it sits down. Then you open it and voila! Yay, like magic. Okay, but there's more. I've got this Liberty Bell, and I'm going to pop this up and add that to that page. Okay, just going to go right there. And of course you can't see all the dimension, but it's there. All right, I'm putting this little tuck spot in the side. And I think I'm done, but I feel like it needs something. Do I want to put something on the bottom? I mean, there's no way you can put a photo on here. Maybe I could do something with the lettering. Let me grab something and let's see what we can do. So I grabbed a red alcohol marker. I had a couple. I tested them out on scraps of paper to see how the color goes on this paper, and decide just do real thin lines and just call out the lettering, because as you've noticed on the other page, for the most part, I like, if there's red, I want to add blue. If there's blue, I want to add red. So here I'm going to fill in the blanks, fill in the lettering, and just add a little bit of red to this. All right, I'm going to do another quick walkthrough. You probably saw one in another video. But so here we've got room. Well, I'm not going to tell you the same things I've told you. I'm just going to talk to you about this from a decorating standpoint. So pretty much the same here. That bow keeps it together. I added the stars in front of Liberty. You could ink around the edges. I know I said I didn't. I think I wish I did. Oh, here's something I want to tell you about. So I cut these with the tag dies and just cut it down. I just had about 1/4 of an inch on each side of that arch on the top, and then cut paper, I think it was 3 by 3.75 to fit on the tags, and that fits in the pocket. And I added different color of seam binding just because I only had little snippets of it, but it worked out. I added a little pocket to the front of this with a couple of the cut aparts. And I just cut the cut aparts. I didn't back them on anything. Of course, I'm trying to keep this from getting too thick, because don't forget, we only have 1/4 of an inch gusset. Here is the Voice of Liberty. I liked how that turned out. I feel like it needed a little more red somewhere, but I couldn't figure out where. On the side here, of course, I made a couple of, I took the stamps and made a little pocket, added some stars and added stars to the other side. There is our little pocket. I made a tuck spot with American Eagle medallion and a couple of the stamps. I just sort of crumpled them and inked on them, and that holds some more of those little cut aparts. I did find this image that was a perfect size to fit in the circle. I cut it out, corner rounded it, and inked around the edges. I added some of the blue stars, and where it says American Eagle, you could use that as a tuck spot. I probably wouldn't, because I love the design element. I added stamps to the bottom of this page because it is perfect for a pocket. There's our baseball guy. I didn't do anything because I think he's handsome. And then the baseball cards go in that pocket, as you saw before. And that's really it. That is the little mini album. I am sure you could make one in an afternoon. You know, just cut everything assembly line, and there you go. I did also want to show you, so here's the same tags that I used. And instead of using the cardstock, this is me showing you how you can use, well, a piece of cardstock that sort of matches the paper. You can ink it and it will match fine, instead of using the paper from the collection to make the hinge and the outside. It's just another option. As well, you could make the pages from cardstock and mat it the same as you would another mini album. So I just wanted to give you that as an option. I might make another mini album with the same paper, doing it that other way. I don't have that much paper left, but we'll see what we could do. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.